So I want to make sure everybody gets to know us as the home team. We're super excited to help you relocate here. We are going to do a little video here. This video is going to cover what property taxes look like in Texas and in Austin, homesteading your property, what that means for you, and then a general overview, and then getting into the nitty gritty on like neighborhoods, traffic patterns, egress, ingress, soil conditions. Like we're really going to go deep on this video in that respect. But to start off with, we're going to talk about homesteading your property and what property taxes look like in Texas. Hopefully that's a good intro, and then we'll jump into the rest. Looking forward to it. People ask me all the time when they relocate, I've heard property tax is high in Austin, right? I've also heard that homesteading can help. So I'm going to walk through some basics on what that looks like and how to save you money. So in any listing that we send you, you're going to notice in kind of the middle bottom right, it's going to rate the tax rate. Now, tax rates in Austin can run from 1.75 to about 3.7. That is a massive 2% swing, right? So you take a $300,000 house, every 1% is $3,000 more a year in property tax. So you really want to focus on that. And, you know, if we can try to find something, I would say if we can find something in the 2.5, 2.6 at the higher end, it's going to keep those numbers in line. But you definitely want to focus on the tax rate because that's going to be part of your payment. And the reason why some of these, like Pflugerville's got some of the higher ones, Hutto's got some of the higher ones. When you have to bring all the utilities and the developers bringing all the underground water and gas and electricity, then that gets repaid as a bond measure as part of your taxes until that gets paid off. And that could be a 20-year bond or a 30-year bond of the developer getting repaid for those services. So eventually that 3% is going to go back down to, let's say, a 2.5 or 2.4 or 2.3, but probably not in the interim that you're living there. So definitely look at the tax rate. It is important, and let that, you know, have an impact on where you choose, because you don't want to get stuck someplace. Maybe the house is inexpensive, but the tax rate's 2% higher than it could be somewhere else. The other thing that you're going to want to do is homestead your property. Homesteading in Texas has 3 benefits. It protects your equity in the property to an unlimited amount, well, up to $20 million. So you can throw money into your homesteaded property, and if you have a lien or judgment, no one can make you sell your house other than the IRS. So, or unpaid property taxes. So got to keep those 2 good, but protects your asset and your equity. It caps your increases to 10% a year. So if your property tax was $5,000 last year, it can't go by more than $500 the next year. And it also lowers the overall value that they assess the property at. So let's say they assess your property at $300,000, you're going to pay based on 270,000, 30,000 less times the tax rate instead of 300,000. So super important that you homestead if it's your primary residence in Texas, and that's where your mail goes and all that stuff. It's free. You have to have lived in the property and owned it as of January 1st of that year. So anybody buying from us through 2020, they can't file for it until January 1st, 2021. But we will help you do that. It's free. Our services are free to help you do that. I have my clients put reminders in their phone. Call me, you know, second week of January. Let's file that. You only file it one time. But what we will do every year for you as an additional service, and that's also free, is you're going to get an assessment every year. Here's what the appraisal district thinks your house is worth. This is a state entity that is trying to collect taxes. So your goal as a taxpayer is to justify paying the least amount based on property values, and their job is to collect as much tax as possible and raise your values, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to snap a picture when that notification comes out every year in like March or April or May sometimes, and you're going to say, hey, home team, we want to take a look at this. Can you find the cheapest possible comps in the area that we can use to fight our values? And you just want to stay on top of that every year. Otherwise, the state will continue to collect more and more taxes. And so if we're successful in doing that, it'll keep your taxes in check. So for those people scared about, you know, what does this look like? And how's it going to affect my bottom dollar? Yes, property tax is higher than, say, the 1.25% it is in California. But if we can keep it in the low to mid 2s, and then add to the fact that you don't have a 13% state tax, your net savings as a worker in Texas are so much more saving 13% state tax than it is paying 1% more property tax. And so you really want to factor that in when you're looking at your choice to relocate, that you do think about the tax rate, but you really focus on where are you coming from. If you have a state tax, it probably makes a lot more sense to pay slightly more in property tax, and we'll help you keep that low. That helps explain a lot about property tax and homesteading in Texas. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. I'm going to go as detailed as I can and explain to you all about the neighborhoods, really the areas in Austin, and then some of the neighborhoods as well, price points, all the rest of the fun stuff that will hopefully get you prepared for coming out to Austin and really understanding already quite a bit about it. So here we go. So thanks guys for coming out. This is going to be sort of a relocation guide, overarching. Let's talk about Austin if you've never been here, and then zeroing in on like some more detailed stuff, and then we'll pop in with questions. The whole goal of this video is for the home team to be able to explain to people relocating into Austin how the city works. And like I said, we're going to start big. As folks come in, we're going to be able to focus more narrowly. But this is going to give you sort of the big overview, high level, and then we'll get into some closer in stuff. So I figured we'd use this map to start off with. This is the greater Austin area. In fact, we go in a little bit closer. It's really more like, we'll go out. So Georgetown, Gerald may be up here to this side, Liberty Hill, there's quite a few developments going around into the lake area out towards Marble Falls, cutting down really through, this would be Fredericksburg out here, but really Johnson City, sort of the outer limits, down through Wimberley, maybe San Marcos, and then out towards Bastrop. So that's kind of in that area where you have contiguous Austin. We're about 2.2 million people. The city itself has about 1 million, which would be the city limits in here. And so to start off with sort of geographically, this is a pretty important piece. The Gigafactory site is going to be just past the airport, which is right about here. And so very close, you're about 15 minutes to downtown Austin. So really, really convenient. 35 is this highway. Now, a lot of folks see this highway bisecting town. They just think traffic, which it is our major interstate that connects states. So there's a lot of traffic on there. So number one reason you may want to avoid 35 is just traffic. But a really important thing to keep in mind is this highway was built on an edge of limestone all the way up. That's why it meanders, doesn't go straight through. So that limestone supports the highway. And everything or most things west of the highway, i.e. this side over here, have a lot of rock in the soils. And so they're going to support foundations. Also the hill country and kind of more interesting topography in general starts west of 35. So when we refer to west, when we talk about Austin, this is what we're talking about, is pretty much everything west of 35. And so traditionally you had homes that were built on that side because you had interesting topography and rocky soils that really held the foundations up. You had flatter, expansive clay soils on this side. And so when you're looking at older foundations, where they just put rebar in the foundations and they were built, say, pre-1990s on this east side, you tend to get a lot of foundation failure because those clay soils are explosively expansive, meaning if you put water on them, they expand quite rapidly and quickly, and then when they dry out in the summer, they shrink and you have cracking. And so around the foundation, if you have that movement of up and down, obviously not great for your foundation. Starting in the 1990s, they started using something called post-tension cable foundations, which mitigates to a great degree some of those expansive clay soil issues. And so you started to see developments popping in over on this east side. But that's where you kind of, the reputation of kind of staying west of 35 has come from. Along with that, the major anomaly on the east side, if we zoom in, is just, and we'll just start going around Austin and I'll just go probably counterclockwise. But here's downtown Austin. This is the central business district. This area here is East Austin. This is gentrified really quickly in the last 5 to 6 years. A lot of folks moving in. Still some foundation issues, but you're basically a bike ride in to downtown. So really has become extremely popular. The Gigafactory is just right outside that kind of hip zone. Here's the airport. It's about 2 minutes, 3 minutes east and north of that airport. And so we'll start talking about this. So this has sort of become the hip zone closer in. There's still some great values as you get just beyond this point and over in past where the Gigafactory is. So between here and Manor up here, there's quite a bit of opportunity to still get in between the 220 $25 to $325,000 price point and still keep yourself within 20 minutes of downtown Austin, which is getting much harder to do on the west side. So this is an area of focus. Tesla coming in is going to really help the Del Valley ISD. Traditionally, it has not been academically as strong as some of the stuff on the west side, but I think with ties with Tesla and some of the education possibilities is really going to do great things, and just the sheer number of folks that are going to be relocating to this area. I'm going to go a little bit further out and show you what's out 71, because the nice point is, and this I refer to as sort of the 5-minute rule in Austin. For every 5 minutes you go away from downtown, you can drop about $100,000 in price points. It's pretty remarkable, certainly on the north-south corridor. But if you're looking for more affordable, a little more space around you, a little more of a country feel, even like pine trees and things, really beautiful, some beautiful topography as well. Bastrop could be an option, and that's about a 25-minute drive into this area. All along this 71 section, really also very nicely affordable as well. Downtown Bastrop's kind of a cute little pocket. Up until now, it hasn't really been considered, I think, a suburb necessarily, but I think we're going to end up seeing a lot of growth happen along this corridor, and currently it's pretty reasonable. And it's a straight shot in. Typically, your laterals that go across are less busy than your north-south highways. Mopac Loop 1 here, 35. 130 is a toll road, and once again, I go back to the reference point of the Gigafactory here, so it's going to make it easy to get in and out along this section. So I'm going to go counterclockwise. We'll go up to Manor and Elgin. Manor and Elgin is another lateral like 71. You're looking in probably the upper 2s, low 3s to get into Manor, probably mid 2s to get into Elgin. This is the road to Houston, along with 71 really. But they've made a lot of improvements on this, so your drive time has really gotten pretty quick getting into downtown. Proximity to the toll road, making it easy to pop down to the Gigafactory, and then quite a bit of expansion in this area, a lot of land for development. In fact, Anwar Beck and I had previewed a neighborhood here that has geothermal heating and cooling and solar, really unique, about 10 minutes north of the Gigafactory site. But lots of housing opportunities along here. We go along 130, we get into Pflugerville, which is also a pretty close-in suburb on the northeast side. A lot of expansion that went up to 130 and is now crossing over and goes out probably about 4 or 5 miles east of that. You go north of there, we get to Hutto. That was actually one of the sites they were considering for the Gigafactory. Good rail system. Not a ton, when you talk about this side, not a ton of shopping and infrastructure, some in Pflugerville, some closer in on 71, closer to Round Rock, but Hutto doesn't have a whole lot there yet coming in. Also, Manor does not, as does Del Valley, but all that's kind of shifting. If we continue up 130, we get into Georgetown. Georgetown has a really old university, really quaint town square, really a old town feel. I really like Georgetown, and the development just keeps getting larger and larger in these concentric circles as you go around Georgetown. You've got homes probably in the 220 to 250 range over here, up to 300,000. When you get on the west side, and once again, we talked about the topography and the soils being differently, and hence some of the desirability. Georgetown on 29 has quite a few upscale golf courses and some nice areas here. Now you're looking probably about a 40-minute drive to get to downtown Austin. If you're coming in and going down 130, you're probably a half hour to the Gigafactory. And this toll road is 6 lanes wide and really easy for egress, ingress. When you get much past Georgetown, it's not really considered a suburb of Austin anymore. If you go straight lateral across 29, Liberty Hill is sort of the northernmost point of some suburbs going in on the northwest side. And 183, this highway is much less traveled than 35. Still pretty busy, but you don't get the interstate trucks and highways that are in that same area. So this has become a really popular part of town to build on. It sticks to the west side rule, right, for soils and topography. Schools are good, and the development has just continued along this toll road of 183. It's also referred to as the tech corridor. So when I got here 12 years ago, Apple had just started about a 500,000 square feet. They're up to finishing out another basically total 2 million square feet. And that's actually right about here. And then you have Dell that's over here. Entertainment arts, I mean, I could list 20 different companies. Amazon's got corridors over here at the Domain. And so you've got a lot going in this north pocket. And as I said, for every 5 minutes, you're dropping 100,000 in price points till you get to a point up here in the Liberty Hill area. I've got folks buying 2,000 square foot brand new construction homes for $260,000 to $300,000. They're within about 18 to 20 minutes of the Apple campus, probably the same distance to Dell campus, about the same distance to the Domain. So it's a really nice pocket for tech workers who work in this northwest pocket. As you go closer in along 183, once again, the pricing gets a little bit more expensive. So we're in the 200s, we're in the 300s, we're in the 400s, we're in the 500s, we're in the 600s, and you can just keep going until you get into downtown on the west side here, where you're averaging a little over $1 million for real estate. We'll come back to that area in a second. So as we continue along this northwest pocket, there is 620, which branches off. That's this little road. The caveat with 620 is if you're choosing to live along here a little closer to the water, you can see this is not a highway. This is a road with lots and lots of street lights. So traffic can get pretty tough because you either got to go all the way around and back to the highway to come back down to downtown, or go all the way down around south. So you want to carefully select where you are for egress ingress patterns. Not being a highway and having lots of streetlights and tens of thousands of people living in this area can make commuting pretty tough during traffic times. Some services have come in along this pocket in Lakeway. We've got the Galleria here, which we'll get to as well. People like this because you've got really great topography. You can get water views, and your price points along this pocket are probably 500,000 to 1.5 to $2 million if you're got water views and a big estate. But this is, once again, 620. The caveat is traffic, right? You have a couple different ways to get in from here, down 2222, or all the way back up to 183 and in. But once again, tens of thousands of people sharing this area with you. While we're over here, let's talk water. There's 3 distinct bodies of water in Austin. This right here is Lake Travis. Lake Travis runs 60 miles all the way up, and it really is more like a lake compared to Lake Austin. This section right here is 1 mile wide, to give you an idea of a reference. There's a restaurant that was made famous in a Garth Brooks movie called The Oasis. The food is okay, the view is spectacular. So if you miss the ocean, you can sit on the edge of a 200-foot cliff face and look across a mile of water and see the sunset. So it's really nice. You can see sailboats because you've got deeper waters, and you can really kind of put your boat to the test going up and down here. So there's a dam right here. This water is where a lot of our drinking water comes from. So you can get 70-foot fluctuations in a year. So it's pretty remarkable. Your boat is on a drought year, could be in full water in the winter and then sitting on rocks in the summer. Not only from the heat and evaporation, but because this is a lot of the Northwest drinking water. So as we add people, water is something definitely to consider moving forward in Texas. In really the rest of the world, you want to think about, where's my water coming from? I've got clients right now with metal roofs they're putting on and doing rainwater collection and using that for outdoor watering, and in some cases for their whole house. So that's a great solution here in Austin. I think it's the future, because we get at least probably 2 or 3 rainstorms a month, and that's enough to keep a couple of 10,000-gallon tanks totally full throughout the year, and drink pure rainwater. So I'm kind of a big fan of using that as a resource. Let's go back and talk water, then we'll get back to housing over here. There's a dam here. The water up here in the summer gets very hot because it's a little more still, and it's a spread out body. And the water that comes off the bottom of the dam here is colder and coming off the bottom. And so when you get into, once again, this is Lake Travis up here. This is Lake Austin. Comes off the bottom of the dam. It tends to be cooler. It's also a narrower body of water. It's more like a river, really, with trees on each side. And so you get a lot more shade. the water tends to be a lot cooler and nicer for swimming. But it's really like a long river, and that takes you all the way through and to another dam that's right about here. And that's the Hula Hut is a famous restaurant that's right by there, but there's another dam that goes in through what's called Town Lake or Lady Bird Lake, which is here. These sections, Lake Austin and Lake Travis, are all for motorized boats. There's houses that are right up against it. Town Lake, you don't get housing right up against it. You actually have a beautiful trail that I swear half the city lives on that trail throughout the year, biking, running. Um, it's awesome. And there's no power boats on the Town Lake Trail or the Lady Bird Lake Trail section. So lots of kayakers and paddle boards, a couple of electric Duffies that you can rent, which is a lot of fun and just super peaceful. And so you get to go out and you're on the lake, but looking up into downtown skyline. And then you have the trail of people running all around you on this 10-mile loop that goes from yet another dam at the other end that continues on with the Colorado. And I've named these as different lakes. Really, they're all part of the Colorado River that runs all the way through with these various dams. Going back to the west side, and we started talking about 620. As you kind of move down, this is Lakeway. This is Steiner Ranch right in through here. Lakeway lives, eats, and breathes all their shopping and everything over here at the Galleria. And so that's an outdoor hospital, movie theater, Whole Foods, Banana Republic, whatever, just all your shop, Home Depot, all the stuff that you're going to do in life, you're probably going to be doing out in this section. And then that expansion for housing is going out towards Briarcliff and Spicewood. Famously, Willie Nelson's got a ranch out here in Spicewood that was sort of the middle of nowhere, and now there's developments going on all around him. He actually may subdivide some of his land and sell it. But coming in through 71, you've got some nice affordability. Sweetwater, I've just helped somebody buy in the 400 range here for a nice 4-bedroom, 3-bath home. Pretty close to water, easy shot in 71 to get into town. But keep in mind, all of this western expansion is ripe for continued expansion, great topography. So right now in this section, out towards Horseshoe Bay and Marble Falls, not a lot, but there will continue to be a western push for expansion and housing growth that way. Because once again, a lot of people they hear west is best and they want to be west. That's one of those areas that can continue to expand for quite a while. Most people right now are buying in this area, Lakeway. There's Serene Hills. There's Hamilton Pool Road, which is beautiful. It comes in through here. Neighborhoods like Rocky Creek, Serene Hills, Belvedere for estates, all along this pocket, and still pretty easy to be able to get into to town, which is right in here. We're going to continue going south. Now we're on 290. This is Dripping Springs, otherwise known as the wedding capital of Texas. So lots of Airbnbs, very quaint, kind of a small town feel, lots of ranches. There's some somewhat famous people that are moving here, and I hear there's a lot of activity potentially on ranch land out in this area. I actually went to an open house that Paul DeJoria had a couple years ago right in here, and it was a few hundred acres, African wild animals, different breeds, waterfalls, underground bunker, like, think Gentleman or Gentlewoman's Ranch. That's Dripping Springs. So really pretty easy to live. They got a good HEB, so you have some shopping, but more of a kind of a ranch feel out on this side if that's what you're looking for. Now your shot in is probably going to be an hour drive with traffic if you're coming over here. I know it doesn't look very far, but you have once again a lot of traffic that's developing out in this area, a lot of neighborhoods, and I'm seeing development going now out to Henley and even towards Blanco and Johnson City, which is on the road, if you've heard of it, to Fredericksburg. This is our wine country in Austin, out towards Fredericksburg. The wine is actually getting better. It has not been, I think, real wonderful when we moved here. I'm definitely getting more impressed by it as we continue to grow. All right, let me see where we were. Okay, so Dripping Springs, we go south, we get into Driftwood. We're going to get into Wimberley, which is down here. This is sort of an artist colony. Once again, same as all the west side, lots of cool topography, cool ranches and things. Definitely pretty upscale stuff over here. but really kind of an artist retreat and kind of ranches again, kind of a similar feel through Driftwood and Wimberley to Dripping Springs. And then as we round out through San Marcos claim to fame really is two big things. Texas State is down here in San Marcos, so lots of students. It does have a cute little town, and it's got a huge like Simon Outlet mall. So those are the two major employers and reasons to be in San Marcos. But there's also an Amazon distribution center there that's about 1 million square feet. And so San Marcos is a little bit far for a suburb for driving in, but it's definitely a possibility. If we come back over to this side, Lockhart, there was an HBO show. Anybody remember the name? Oh, The Leftovers, I think was the name of it. Anyway, they shot that in Lockhart. Really quaint town, great barbecue, kind of an undiscovered gem, also kind of an artist colony. This one would also be an interesting option if you wanted that feel, because it's a straight shot up 130, taking you past the airport to the Gigafactory. I'd say the Gigafactory is maybe 20 minutes from here, maybe 15 even. So Lockhart is very affordable, mid 200s to get a house down there pretty easily. Maybe you'd cap out about 400 or 500 with a little bit of land around you. So that's a really appealing one, I think, for a lot of folks that want that and can just pop up 130 to work if you're working for Tesla. When we go back to 35, we have Kyle and Buda. These are kind of some south suburbs. The eastern side, I'd say you're looking at price points in the 250 to 300 range. West side's 300 to 500. And that would be the same for both sides. The bottom here, just above Buda, is the end of the city limits for Austin. So that's where we've kind of come back into. I'm going to continue around the city, and then we'll go back into the central pocket. So this, once again, is 130. We're back again to Bastrop, and Manor is up here coming in closer. Now I'm going to focus a little bit on the central areas and just sort of walk you through. Here's Town Lake Trail. We have the Central Business District, which is up here. So you've got high rises that are probably as pricey, gosh, as San Francisco, New York City, if you want to spend that kind of money. And then as you go every 5 minutes, you're kind of dropping off a cliff on price points until you get to a point down here where a house here along the Slaughter corridor, new construction will cost you just under 400. That same house would cost you $1 million or 950,000 if it was here. So pretty remarkable for about a 12-15 minute difference from 2 minutes to downtown to 15 to 20. But if we go into this pocket, if you've seen pictures of South Congress, the Continental Club, all the shopping and funky shops and boutiques, our version of Melrose, that's South Congress. South First, tons of great restaurants. Lamar, also that. This is referred to as the 78704. That's the zip code. And this triangle here really was a lot like the eastern side over here that has transitioned over the last 5 years to be super popular. This happened about 20 years ago. So this has become the keeping it weird section. This is that South Congress is what you think of for that, for boutiques and shops and bars and things like that. Once again, Central Business District, high rises. You get to the west side of CBD and you've got Clarksville, which are smaller homes, single family homes, and then Terrytown on this side. Also pretty expensive. They're going to go to the downtown high school, Austin High. I'm going to go focus on this north pocket. We get into Allendale, we get into Crestview, really all from this pocket up to 183 and Mopac and down. You're probably looking in the 500 to 1.2 million range up here, getting a little pricier as we get into here. Northwest Hills, west of Mopac, they got great schools, nice topography. And once again, you're a few $100,000 cheaper than you are in Terrytown pretty easily. So you're probably in the 700,000, 800,000, 900,000 range here within 15 minutes of downtown. If I now am going west, everything south of the water here, all the way up to almost the Galleria and then kind of across here is referred to as Westlake. And Westlake High School produces, it's great academically. It's probably the #1 school in Texas for high school, for public schools. Great athletics program, drama program, music program. So really highly desirable school district. And it's really defined by Eanes ISD, EANES ISD, short for Independent School District. And so this is very desirable. The closest in would be Rollingwood and Westlake Hills. And then this part out here is really part of the county. And then this part is part of the city, but it's all referred to as Westlake and all feeds into those schools. As we go south, you're about probably 10 minutes south, and I just refer to this whole pocket as the Circle C area, and that's south of Westlake. Also great schools. You're going into Bowie High School, which I think is an 8 or 9. Great elementary and middle schools. Verify everything on greatschools.net, by the way, and just I would always check that. Just great for resale and kind of know where you're getting. But this is about, without traffic, 12 minutes to downtown. With traffic, it could be 40 minutes. So just know all these north-south roads get really busy with all the expansion that's going on. And then this also has started, this used to be the end of the world, I would say, of South Austin when I moved here 12 years ago. Now there's a ton of expansion as you go down to Driftwood. The Salt Lick Barbecue is down here in Driftwood. So that's kind of a reference point. And then a lot of kind of high-end developments coming up through this road, which is 1826. And those schools are Dripping Spring schools. So they're feeding into Drip, which is, their kids really would kind of bus in over here. Elementaries are popping up along here, but also very good schools. And let's see, what did I miss? If we go east of 35, south of the airport, this is another area that I think you're going to see decent pricing. You're still good. There's Easton Park is a neighborhood I like over there. There's some pretty good values, and you're also pretty close to the Gigafactory. You're going to be priced somewhere between probably 250 and say 700, but a lot of opportunity in the 250 to 300 range. So another value pocket. A lot of these neighborhoods over here, what you want to pay attention to are some of the flight patterns and find out where they're coming in and out, just to make sure you're aware of that, so you don't buy the house and and find out there's a plane that goes over every hour or more. So let me talk about kind of the higher end stuff. So you're about $1,200 a square foot if you're living in the Four Seasons downtown or the W residences. You're about $500 to $600 a square foot starting in the Rollingwood area. So really just from high rise to there, you're half price, right? You're in the 400 to 600 square foot for a house walkable to all this funky, cool stuff here. You're 400, 350 a square foot in South 704. Now we're down into probably 220 a square foot. 150 to 200 a square foot. So, I mean, it really gets really dramatic. So when we just look at overall pricing, this is for every 5 minutes, you're getting a lot more affordable as you go south. So let's call this 800,000, 600,000, 400, 450, 350, 350, and you get to a point where it's just not going to get any cheaper, and you get basically hit baseline construction cost. But this pocket down here is probably the closest in. I do quite a few sales. It's west of 35, good soils, handful of new construction along the Slaughter Corridor, good shopping, and you can buy a house for 300 to 425 pretty easily and be within 15 minutes with no traffic, 25 minutes with traffic of downtown. And then you've got a pretty easy shot going out towards the Gigafactory. So going west, I'll use the same example.
Matt, what would you say is you mentioned the base construction cost, even if you go out like 30, 40 minutes outside of Austin, what is that bottom, the floor price?
So the floor is like 250 right now, is about 250, 300,000. They're getting that in Kyle. They're getting that a little bit cheaper maybe in San Marcos. They're getting that towards Liberty Hill, Cedar Park, Round Rock. And so you're looking at call $150 a square foot is a pretty solid kind of baseline. So once you've reached a point in that periphery where you're the closest in neighborhood that sort of hit that price point, you sort of you might as well buy there if you're price sensitive and you want to be in that pocket, because it can get affordable. Now, I've helped people in Cedar Park buy resales recently for $95 a square foot. You just got to dig for the deals. Now, that typically is larger square footage, right? So when you start with a small home, there's a baseline cost. So the price per square foot is going to be higher than something that has an extra 1,000 square feet. It tends to get a little cheaper as you get larger in the same neighborhood. So that $95 a square foot was like a 2,800, almost 3,000 square foot home. Whereas it might've been 140 for a smaller home in the same neighborhood. So it's just the square footage gets pretty reasonable. once again, we're starting in the, say, the 7s. You go out to the Y. This going out towards Dripping Springs is another area I really like, but there's a lot of traffic where you get 290 coming in with Mopac and 71, sort of this pocket here. But affordability is pretty good. So you're in, say, the 500s, and then out about just before you get to Dripping Springs, this area is Belterra and High Point. You can spend $450 to $550 and have 3,500 square feet, maybe with a swimming pool. And you're in the 500, maybe 600 range to buy. So pretty nicely affordable, and about a 40-minute drive in, 45-minute drive in with traffic. On the north side, Terrytown, called average 1.2 million. By the time you get to Northwest Hills, you're probably averaging 800,000 or 900,000. You get to Balcones, you're probably 500,000 to 600,000 average. And then keep in mind, Apple's right here. So that being Apple centric, excuse me, and Domain over here, that makes this lateral kind of nice too. We get up into this area and we're 400s, 300s. And then we get into probably the same price point, 300s, 400s, until it doesn't get a whole lot less expensive till you get past Cedar Park and into Leander and the Liberty Hill pocket. This is a greatly super affordable area. I'm helping people buy in the upper 200s all day long for new construction along this pocket. But it's a little bit tougher if you're working at the Gigafactory to get across town. But that's a really nice investment pocket on that side. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you're new to Austin, please reach out to us. So we're the Home Team Austin. So it's just HOLM teamaustin.com, hometeamaustin.com. You can reach all of our team members there, read about us. A kind of fun thing that you have on there that's a nice reference point if you haven't been to Austin or want to learn more about it, or fun stuff to do. In our Tesla relocation link on that page, we have a number of links in there for all kinds of fun stuff to do about Austin, restaurants, music event spaces, water sports and activities. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So let us be a resource for you. We can't wait to have you guys come out and to show you our Austin. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.